Football in Focus, Shane's Rib Shack back for another Thursday. Talking some football today, talking about maybe some high school football, but some Carolina Panthers football. I think that's the big talk right now. Panthers first game tonight. Juice Sirera with us.
Huge game.
Big game for the Panthers. Come back and see what they can do tonight. They need to make a big statement tonight. Come in and win that game by a big margin and set the tone for the entire year. They can do that tonight at Denver. Denver's got a new young quarterback. The Panthers have the same quarterback, so they should be ready to roll tonight, you would think. Going in, a couple of young guys in the secondary. They may get tested back
Two
there
rookie corners starting. One from my alma mater, Darryl Worley from West Virginia, and Mr. Bradbury. They hold up, and a good pass rush can make any secondary look pretty good.
Going to be a fun night for the Panthers. I think 8:30 on NBC, right?
Yes, sir.
Checking those guys out. Checking out the Grimsley game back on Monday night. Give us your breakdown on that Grimsley game, how that went and what you saw there.
Very good start, very good first quarter for the Whirlies. They're up 20-0. They had a nice long drive on their first possession, kind of set the tone. Were physical with Athens Drive from Raleigh. And they kind of took their foot off the gas pedal a little bit, let Athens Drive get back into the game a little bit. But second half, kind of workmanlike, closed it out 127-6. You know, those are the kind of games that the good teams can get the ship right, figure out how to win those games and put them away, and they did that. I think it was definitely a positive step forward for Grimsley.
And how about Braylon Faison Walden in the backfield as a running back? Gave them a good effort that night. He gave them probably more offense than he did defense, and I guess playing as the coach needs him to play.
Yeah, he told me afterward that was the game plan going in, that he knew during the week that he was going to be mainly an offensive guy against Athens Drive, wouldn't get as many reps on defense. He was a tough inside runner. I mean, he's got the size, but he ran hard between the tackles, got them some tough yards, and what he also did was he kind of softened up the Athens Drive defense so that when Grimsley brought the sophomore little scat back in, although he's a strong kid, Born Lassane.
Is that guy's name Born Lassane or Born Insane? I was trying to...
He ran insane. He had two 40-yard plus runs, 4 carries for 101 yards. Braylon had 101 yards on 20 carries, so he kind of softened things up. Lassane broke loose, and Braylon said after the game that Bourne is a kid to really watch for the next year or two.
And talking to Coach Brown, it seems like Garrett Hudnall, the quarterback Hudnall, did a good job managing the game. Didn't try to do too much out of his element. Just able to keep that team moving, keep the ball moving. Defense held them to 6. Raleigh Athens. I like Raleigh Athens Stroud as quarterback. They didn't use him around the corners, the edges. I thought he might tie him up a little bit, but decent quarterback, big right side, their deep offensive line.
And a nice sophomore running back, big kid Isaiah Henderson. He ran well against Grimsley. I mean, some of it was Grimsley let up a little bit, and some of those Athens Drive kids weren't bad. I was pleasantly surprised by them after seeing Broughton last Thursday kind of lay an egg against Eastern Guilford.
And what about looking back at that game and looking ahead now? What are maybe the top 5 games you're looking at for this week? Who do you think? I know the Dudley Hillside game's got to be a top. Even though it's out of the town, it's in Durham, but that's got to be a top 5 game. I guess the other games around the area, maybe the Grimsley High Point Central game we talked about a few minutes ago before we got started tonight. What about your top 5 this week? Who are you looking at?
Well, obviously the Dudley game. This is a good Hillside team. They beat New Bern already. They beat Southern Durham last week, something they hadn't done in a while. They've only given up 17 points through 2 games, so they're playing good defense, but they haven't faced an offense anything like what Dudley will show them this week, especially with the incident involving Hendon Hooker, the quarterback, being reduced from a suspension to a disqualification. Richard Monroe IV stepped in, did a great job at Davie County, but having Hendon back, I don't think that's a game that Dudley has to worry about losing, but I think they'll get pushed by that Hillside team. Southeast Guilford and Northwest Guilford game we're both going to be at. I think to me that's the game of the week. Northwest has
They got to be careful, right? Come off a big win last week, more big games down the road, kind of Southeast sandwiched in here in between. Got to be careful with this game.
And I think this game, in a way, plays to Southeast strengths a little bit. Last week, Northwest had a little bit of trouble up front getting gashed by Northern Guilford. MJ Frazier with over 200 yards in less than 3 quarters of play against them. 2 really long runs. First play from scrimmage for them in the first half. First play from scrimmage for them in the second half.
Did Northwest tighten the screws, make adjustments to change how he was able to run?
They made some adjustments. They stopped run blitzing so much, and they got caught on both of those long runs in a run blitz where once he got separation to the second level. There was no second level. He was gone. There was no one back there to make a play. Southeast wants to run the ball, wants to run the clock, wants to grind it out.
It seems like the Southeast is smarter than they've been in the past, and I guess that comes with age and with the type of personnel you got too. But they're throwing the ball, mixing the throw in with Ryan Douglas, throwing the ball quite well, and that seems to be working pretty good. Able to mix in the pass and the run, but still focusing on the run because that's what the bread and butter is. There's no doubt about that.
That's Southeast Guilford football. The way Coach Fritz runs that program, they want to be tough, they want to be physical, they want to be able to run the ball on you, and if they can hold the ball and shorten that game like you would in basketball, kind of slow it down a bit, hold the ball, score, and not turn the ball over, I think they've got a chance. But that Northwest team is so explosive. And Thomas Hennigan, what can you say about a kid who in 2 games has accounted for 10 touchdowns and 2 two-point conversions and really didn't have a great first half against Northern Guilford?
And they get so many weapons, like you said, that Northwest team. Hennigan's going crazy. You got Trey Turner. He leads most of the area receivers. He's only played 2 games, close to 300 yards receiving in 2 games. And you got the Cloud kid, Cameron Cloud. You got the Finney kid. And you got the other guys, the backup guys that helped that first week when
Zach
guys
Tyler
were hurt.
stepped in, ran for over 100 yards in their opener. Jacob Leonard's a solid quarterback, something where they struggled a little bit with quarterback play last year.
He's got some good numbers so far this year.
Yeah,
Very good
and
numbers.
he doesn't make a lot of mistakes, and the quarterbacks who played for them last year struggled a little bit with some turnovers, with taking sacks. He doesn't do those things. He gets the ball to the playmakers, but when they went with Hennigan at the quarterback position, running the ball, Northern just didn't have an answer for him, and a lot of teams aren't going to have an answer for him.
Is he going to be in college a receiver, a runner, a slot man? You're going to line up it wide out in college, you think?
App State, where he's committed to right now, has told him that he will be a receiver. Whether that's on the outside or the inside probably depends on the situation. He's big enough to be an outside guy,
might move him around a little bit.
He's elusive enough to be an inside guy, a slot guy too. And they're going to want to find ways to get him the ball. They're going to want to run jet sweeps to him. They're going to want to get the ball in his hands in space. He's perfect for the type of spread attacks you see at the college level so much now, and also at the high school level.
Like James Summers when he's still for East Carolina.
Exactly.
Any place in the field possible.
Yeah, and when those kids are out there, you don't know how they're going to come at you, whether they might line up as a quarterback, a receiver, running back, what they're going to do.
And the Grimsley High Point Central game, that's another kind of game to keep an eye on. That's a marquee game down at Grimsley.
Yeah, I think that we talked about this before we went on the air here. Kind of a defining game possibly for both teams. High Point Central, 1 and 2, they've put up some points. They've had some yardage. Chavis Little's having a great year, 630 yards on the ground in 3 games. Larry McLean, the quarterback, has had some good moments, but they've turned the ball over a lot, and their defense has struggled. This is a game where they're going to need to turn it around very soon, because when they get into the Piedmont Triad 4A this year with East Forsyth, with Northwest Guilford, with Southwest Guilford, with Glenn, all unbeaten at this point, that is going to be a meat grinder, and they can't afford to be in a hole going into that stretch of their schedule. Grimsley wants to build some momentum. They're 2-1. This is the kind of game that they need.
If they went 3-1 to start out, that would be a step in the really right direction for them.
Yeah, and it gets tougher for them because after that they've still got to play East Forsyth over here. That's a very tough team. They and Dudley seem to be clearly the 2 best teams around, and then they've still got to play Page, play Dudley, play Southeast. So it's going to get tougher, but this is the kind of game that could swing either team's season, I think.
It's going to be a big test for both teams' defenses. Whose defense is playing better? Because, like you said, both teams have offense. They've proven that already.
Yeah.
And with Central, you mentioned Chavis Little. You mentioned as well McLean, the quarterback. They've got Kurt Irvin, a very good receiver, very good running back, too. They've got some. They always seem to have very good athletes, guys, because Coach Jones is much into running. Guys that can really run and cover space.
He's a track coach.
Exactly. That's it. That's what the deal is.
But if they can get their guys out into space and get the edge on Grimsley, that's going to make it difficult for the Whirlies. The Whirlies have some pretty good athletes on that side too, who can cover things to the outside.
I'll tell you another guy. Let me raise my hand. We got to give this guy Chris Wiggins. I thought had a good game. And a good game Wiggins because they had Aaron Wiggins last year playing basketball. Lost Aaron to High Point Western or Western Christian Academy. This Chris Wiggins guy looked good at that receiver spot though.
Yeah, he's a relative newcomer to football. He did have one embarrassing moment when they were up and in control of the game in the first half. He ran past the defensive back, was open running down the left sideline. Garrett Hudnall threw a perfect ball. I mean, the ball could not have been thrown any better. It was thrown so well that it hit Chris Wiggins on the top of the helmet and bounced away. And if he catches that, I think that game, instead of being 27-6, ends up being 40-something, maybe to nothing. At that point, I think that would have been a dagger to Athens Drive. But he made a lot of other nice plays in the game. He made a lot of tough catches. He made one diving catch in the corner of the end zone that was very impressive. So, he's got a lot of upside, and they really like some of the things that he can do for them.
Let's go back before we leave these games. Let's do this right quick. Who do you like in the Dudley Hillside game? You taking Dudley?
Definitely Dudley. I think Dudley by about 3 touchdowns.
And your scores will be tomorrow. It's probably paper, I guess, tomorrow morning?
Yes, sir.
You'll have those numbers.
Oh, yeah.
Check those out.
Already on the website.
On the website, it's Greensboro.com.
HSXtra.com.
Yeah.
Gets you there. Yes, sir.
Jeff Mills, someone told me, said we had this name at the paper, Greensboro.com. I never used that name, Greensboro.com. I was mentioning that. Good name, Greensboro.com. And the high school extra section. What about the Grimsley Central game? Who are you taking there?
I think it'll be a very close game, and I'm looking for Grimsley to pull that one out. I think the home field may swing it for them. They're starting to build a little momentum at home, starting to get the fans
and
back.
And that crowd should be there. You got all
student section will be there.
4 days to promote the game. You got Tuesday through Friday. You got all day tomorrow during the school day to promote the game. Get those kids out there.
It's a little bit of a wild card there is them having the short week, having played on Monday. Now we'll see. Sometimes they ride the momentum and they're okay, and sometimes they're a little bit tired or a little banged up. We'll kind of see what happens there.
What about look at that Southeast Guilford Northwest Guilford game? You're leaning toward Northwest?
Yeah, I think so. I think
going at least 2 touchdowns?
I think it'll be closer than that, and I think it'll be relatively low scoring unless Southeast has a lot of turnovers. If they have a lot of turnovers, Northwest can put them away very quickly. But if they can play ball control the way they want to, keep the mistakes to a minimum, I think they're physical enough to give Northwest a tough one.
So Southeast needs to be in this game at halftime, without a doubt. Got to be in the game at halftime.
Definitely.
What about Smith and Southern Guilford? Looking at this game, both teams are 1-2, and Smith has proven they can play in close games. Got beat in a close one at Lee County, won a close one at Western Guilford last week. Southern Guilford lost a quarterback, so they're playing a different type of game now with Edwards, the new quarterback. Who do you like in this one?
I give a slight edge to Southern Guilford. I think those kids are used to winning, even with the new coaching staff. I think that's going to go a long way in this one. I think they're going to keep the game relatively low scoring, and I think Smith is still kind of finding their way, kind of learning how to play disciplined football. Brandon Wiggins, I think, is doing an excellent job there and his staff. But I think the structure and the success of the Southern Guilford program will carry them through.
And what about Ragsdale at Page? Ragsdale, a big win last week, but it's a different animal this week. At Page, totally different animal.
Yeah.
One from a Ram to a Pirate, totally different kind of animal.
Page, after struggling with turnovers in the fourth quarter, mistakes in their opener, the loss 39-29 at Davie County, they seem like that was a wake-up call to them, and they are really playing good football. A lot of young guys coming in on the offensive line. They lost 4 or 5 starters. They lost all of their receivers who had catches last year except Ronald Polite. He's been a leader there. The younger guys are starting to step up and emerge, and they've got some talent on defense. That's a good football team. Their game with East Forsyth is going to be definitely probably the best game I saw last year, and I expect it to be another great game this year.
They got a big one before that. I think Reagan the week before, right?
Reagan also a good team. That was a shootout last year. The game that was delayed because there was an accident driving over to Winston-Salem, and Page got caught in traffic for about 2 hours. They started that game about 8:15.
Like unreal, off the charts. I think it was like a 50-some point game.
Reagan played like that with a lot of teams last year, and they're a little more low scoring this year.
And again, it's going to be a nice night at Shane's Rib Shack. The sun begins to shine as the heat takes down our banner halfway, but we'll cover for that soon, I hope. Also this week, Southwest at Western. A couple of years ago, Western pulled the upset on the Doug Henderson night, but I don't think the upset happens this year. We talk about Eddie Rabbit's tune years ago, I Love a Rainy Night. Could be a rainy night without raining tomorrow night. Jaron Rainey is a solid young quarterback.
Yeah, and he's going to execute the game plan. He's Coach Eric Rainey's son. He's been groomed for that job for a while. Smart kid, good quarterback, a great athlete. He's good. Nolan Johnson, defensive back for them, who also plays some on offense, already has scholarship offers from Maryland and a number of other teams, and he's just starting his junior year. He's a kid who's kind of been under the radar a little bit. There's a lot of talent down there. Western, a little better than last year, but I think it's still going to be a struggle for them, even with Mikey Kennedy getting some
I think
experience.
he's going to do enough to at least keep them around the radar some of the time. They better be glad they've got him. They need him to at least be around a game.
Yeah,
but Rainey, he can do it with the throw. He's had this year's different. He's done with the run himself. And the Bryson Jumper kids jumped out about 300 some yards rushing.
Yeah,
did a good job there.
A nice 1-2 punch on the ground. They've been more ground oriented this year than I would have thought they would be. But when the kind of spread offense that they run, Coach Rainey is going to have them come up to the line, and if the defense is giving them the run, they're going to run, and if the defense is giving them the pass, they're going to pass. They're going to read.
And that's a good call there too. What about the call with Northeast at Rockingham County? Northeast is dying for. They got to get a win.
Yeah, these are two really struggling programs, both 0-3. It's been tough sledding for Rockingham County the last few years. They had a one-year coach who left, Derek Miner. Mike Jebbia, who was a long-time defensive coordinator there, has taken over. Great enthusiasm, great attitude. The kids love him, but they're a little bit undermanned. Most of the top talent in Rockingham County is playing for Reidsville. Last year, Moorhead had a nice run. They were all seniors, so they're gone. This is one of those games where I think whichever team doesn't get the win in that one may struggle to get a win the rest of the way. I think I'd give a very, very slight edge to Rockingham County in that one because I think their defense is a little bit better, but those are two teams that are struggling a bit.
Got a big challenge, Northern at Burlington Williams. Williams 3-0, and they're just waiting for Northern to come in at 0-2.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams in the Mid-State 3A that I think are going to be gunning for Northern this year, but I think if they think they're going to roll over them, I've underestimated Northern in the past, and I'm not going to do that as much again. This Williams team is playing very well, but not against a great schedule. Northern, if they can get MJ Frazier going like they did against Northwest, I don't think Williams has the firepower that Northwest does, and I think this will be a very close game. I give a slight edge to Williams simply because they're unbeaten and they're kind of feeling it right now, but it wouldn't shock me at all if Northern beat them.
One of the big keys for Northern, you got to keep this Frazier kid healthy. If he goes down, you're in trouble, it seems like right now.
Yeah, he and Jordan Lane are really the only playmakers they have on offense right now. They get Ford Moser involved from time to time, and Garrett Marsh has had a couple of nice plays for them in the games I've seen, but they don't have quite as many dynamic players as they've had in the past, and their defense has struggled at times. I think they're still very young there. They were young last year. They're even younger this year. Yeah, they're building something, but I think it's going to take a year or two to get back to where they were.
What about this Reidsville and High Point Andrews game? Reidsville had a kid last week return 3 punts
Boston
for touchdowns
Chestnut
in one game. How about
tied a
that
state
kid,
record.
Huh?
Tied a state record. Yeah. 2 of them were shorter returns. They were less than 50 yards, but they were still great returns. Last year, Andrews went up to Reidsville, won 48-3. There were a bunch of injuries for Reidsville. They lost some two-way linemen who were keys, Mike Golden and a couple of other kids, and the injuries and turnovers early got them behind, and then it snowballed. I don't see that happening this year. This is a very, very, very good Reidsville team, and Andrews is still kind of finding their footing with John Patterson, the new coach. They had a lot of losses to graduation. Still have Travis Steele. Still have Jamari Palbusa, 2 good guys there. Some really good talent on their defensive line. Some big, strong, athletic kids there, but the numbers they're not as deep as they were. And anytime you got a new coaching staff, completely new, coming in, there's going to be some struggles and some growing pains.
And I've already seen a couple of approaches by Coach Patterson saying, I've got to change a few things here. The kids aren't getting this the way we're doing. We got to make some adjustments, and that's something that has to do with new coach and new kids together.
Yeah, and they've been Andrews has been a wing T program for so long, and in their feeder program, and all of a sudden you're asking kids who have been used to one structure to grasp something new, and it's new kids. It's going to take a little time, but John Patterson can coach football. That hasn't changed. He hasn't forgotten. He's been successful in a lot of places.
High school and college level.
And this is his alma mater, Andrews. He's going to make it work there. It's just going to take a little while.
Let's get off the games into the players. And how about, it's early in your 3 games in, but who's got the edge right now? It's got to be maybe about 3 guys you'll give us the edge for the player of the year.
You got to start with Thomas Hennigan.
Yeah.
In 2 games, he's accounted for either running, passing, or catching 10 touchdowns and 2 two-point conversions. the competition's going to get a little bit tougher, and he's not going to put up those kind of numbers, but he could take over a game. There's not many players in the area this year who can. To me, he's kind of having the kind of season that Reggie Gillespie did a couple of years ago in obviously a different style and a different way, but just dominating every game he's in. And to me, he's got a little bit of separation. Hendon Hooker has been phenomenal.
Right. But both guys are interesting. Hennigan missed a game, and Hooker missed part of the game. So both those guys actually just played maybe about 2 games.
Yeah, and Hendon Hooker's 2 full games, and they weren't full games. They were games where he barely played in the second half. Yeah. He put up monster numbers. He's another kid who can take over a game. That Dudley team has so many weapons and has such a great defense that I think sometimes I don't and other people don't fully appreciate how good he is because of all the talent around him.
They're forced to do some things where he would be pushed in certain situations where he can actually show those things you're talking about because they actually move past people bury people at times, just put people away in a hurry.
You got 2 great playmakers at Page.
Sure,
Javon Leake has had a great season already.
Last week, 5 TDs,
Kid who's going to Maryland, he's got the speed that when he gets in the open field, you're not likely to catch him unless you take a great angle on him. He's a good receiver. He gets tough yardage for you. And Will Jones at quarterback, I mean, he's already getting comfortable with this new group of receivers. Those are 2 dynamic playmakers.
Leak, I think Leak sometimes is most dangerous as a punt returner. I'd hate to face that guy one-on-one open field. As a punt returner, he just stands back. You saw the Northern game, just stand back with those punts, catches plays like a Mack truck down the highway, blowing through the people, hit it to the goal line.
He's got tremendous straight-ahead speed, straight-line speed. He's a downhill run. When he's a downhill runner, every once in a while he'll start dancing a little bit at the line or behind the line. But when he runs downhill, there aren't many people who can run with him or who can stop him. Those are kids that immediately come to mind to me as big playmakers. The Frazier kid at Northern Guilford has had a really nice start, transfer from Southern Durham. Chavis Little with 630
unsung
yards.
Players might be Chavis Little, guys like Jaron Rainey. Those guys don't get mentioned quite as much in the other discussion about the guys at the top. But a guy like Little, he may end up being the top rusher in Guilford County this year.
Yeah, he's off to a great start. He's averaging over 200 yards a game. He's getting a lot of touches. I mean, he's averaging about 20 touches a game. But will he hold up? Wearing down over the course of a season? I think so. I think he's shown in the past that he's a solid runner.
What about, you mentioned the big games looming, big games for Page, Reagan, East Forsyth, Northwest has got Reedsville coming up.
And Dudley and Grimsley, of course.
And you've got Dudley's got this Pine Forest team next week at home. They're 3-0. I don't say a lot about them, but following that week, they go down to Richmond County. Big ones for Dudley, Page, and Northwest, your top 3 teams. All those guys have big games on the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the team, we mentioned this earlier, that I think is flying under the radar a little bit this year's Eastern Guilford. They are 3-0. They're off this week. They played on Thursday, so they've got a little time to rest up and get healthy. That team could very easily be 8-0 when they play Western Alamance on October 21st. They've gotten through the toughest part of their schedule. They still have to deal with Northern Guilford and Williams before that, but that's a strong, deep team. Good coach, Doug Robertson, won a state title at Reedsville. He didn't suddenly forget how to coach, and there's some talent on that team.
Yeah, the Dominique Graves kid, I think, got the Bob Sawyer Player of the Week award.
Rotary Club Award, yes, he did.
That's pretty nice for him, and very nice for Eastern, too, to be mentioned in those same conversations when it comes to those type of awards, because sometimes Eastern kind of gets left out of some of those, now starting to be part of the mix. As you mentioned, if they go 8, and they're ranked number 6 in the state this week, and they come out of Prep Stop Comp, that's pretty good respect there for them, too.
Yeah, and it's Doug Robertson has told me on a number of occasions that this is the deepest team he's had in the 4 years he's been there. In 2013, they got off to a 6-1 start, and injuries really took a toll on them. They were beat up, and then they went through that gauntlet that they face every year in the Mid-State 3A schedule of Northern, Guilford, Western Alamance, Eastern Alamance. And when they came out of that, they had nothing left, and they finished 7-5 after being 6-1.
Is the Finnerty kid healthy now?
Doug told me after Thursday night's game that with the off week this week, they expected him back next week. They expect to get most of the guys who they've had out.
Some of those playmakers, yeah.
And they've been great without them. That's the difference, I think, this year, is that in the past, they've gotten off to the good start, and then they've lost guys to injuries. This year, they got off to the start with guys injured, and now they're getting them back. So they were a team to watch.
Who do they have next? Who they got next week? Any idea?
It's one of the Rockingham County schools.
Okay.
They're into their conference schedule
now.
Right.
And they start out with a little bit of cushion in the beginning and build toward
And
the,
then they
the
like I
big.
said, they've got that Northern Guilford, Western Elements, Eastern Elements gauntlet every year. Yeah.
After week one of the ACC's Big Four teams, what do you think the ACC Big Four teams, how do they stack up 1 through 4? And where do you put East Carolina among those guys?
We'll know where we put East
Getting
Carolina
close,
after
getting
they play
close.
NC State, I think.
How about those 5? How do you stack those guys up?
I think Carolina did a lot of good things against Georgia, not enough. They've got to solidify their defense, especially their run defense. If they do so, I think they're probably, I give them a slight edge over NC State. State and ECU, we'll see after this week. New coach, Scotty Montgomery at ECU. Until we see how that goes, I hesitate to put them higher than about third among that group. I feel for Ruffin McNeil. I think he did a great job there. I don't think that was a great decision to get rid of him. Kind of reminded me of when they got rid of Steve Logan, and it took them a little while to come back from that. You be careful what you wish for in terms of if you're going to get rid of your coach, unless you know you can make a home run hire. If the guy you have has been successful. Duke next. They've had a lot of injury losses. The quarterbacks are hurt
If
again.
they get through things with a new quarterback in there, the Jones kid, they're able to get through things with him there. More credit to Cutcliffe. He's done an outstanding job just to stay competitive and still win some games.
Yeah, and they're more athletic. They have more talent than the Duke teams of 5 or 10 years ago. I mean, they're not going to fall off a cliff, but I don't think they're as strong as they've been the last few years. And Wake is very much a work in progress. I mean, that Tulane team that they played last week is really bad, and it was a 7-3
game. A game like that, a 7-3 game, kind of worries you a little bit. You think your offense is going to be more credible than that.
Yeah.
And the Hinton kid I think he's out of Southern Durham or Durham
You're
Hillside.
correct, yes.
That kid's a talent too. I like that kid.
Yeah.
Plus the Durham Hillside quarterback, they won't have the same one this year because the Chauncey Caldwell kid's at Mallard Creek now. So a lot of guys moving around.
Yeah.
Moving toward the Panthers game. Who do you like in that game? You like the Panthers or the Broncos? Panthers win big.
I don't know about big. I'd say 10 to 13 points. That'd be my pick.
But it'll be more than 10 or 13. It won't be a 13 to 10 game. You're expecting some offense on that board.
Yeah, I think a young quarterback for Denver may try to do a little too much and may get some sacks or some picks. And Cam Newton and his offense, I think they're going to be fine.
I think Jonathan Stewart, if he's healthy, is one of the better backs in the league. When he's running downhill like this, that guy can go.
Yeah, and with all the other weapons that they have, if their receiving core is healthier this year, it just makes him that much more dangerous. You can't key on anything.
And some of those receivers, like the Funches kid, he'll develop from last year. This
He's
year
only
should be
going to get better.
A large improvement going from first year to second year. And other guys, I guess the Corey Brown kid, the Philly Brown guy, still out there somewhere. Always liked his big play catching ability.
Yeah.
Always strong there. Dudley Panthers, hypothetical situation. Dudley Panthers meet East Forsyth Eagles at the big field out behind the Farmers Market on Highway 40 at Sandy Ridge. It sees 46,000 on the hills. Who wins this game? There's our high school football
Oh, boy.
big situation game. Dudley versus East Forsyth.
From a personal standpoint, I would love to see that because I think we'd see about 8 or 9 overtimes and they'd be playing until after 11 o'clock. I would love it. I've got to give a slight edge to Dudley just on having more players on their team who can make big, explosive plays. But that East Forsyth team is really good, has a massive offensive line. I mean, their offensive line averages about 280 pounds. One of the reasons that they were able to take Mallard Creek to the brink last year and really should have beaten them is because they were one of the only teams in the state that could match size for size up front with Mallard Creek, and they still have those kids. And they're finding their way at linebacker. They've got 2 great defensive backs in Madison Cone, who's going to Wisconsin, and a sophomore, Khalid Martin, who is a second-team freshman All-American. There's a lot of talent there, and we know how much talent
And we're
Dudley
getting ready to
has.
find out more about those guys here pretty quickly too, aren't we? As they head toward the Page game and toward the conference games with Northwest, Southwest, Glenn, who's an improved team too. All those teams in that conference.
They got by West Forsyth. That was a huge win for them, 23-10 last week in Clemens. I mean, that was a statement win for East Forsyth, definitely.
What about the Virginia Tech and Tennessee game at Bristol? Who wins that one?
Well,
The way Tennessee played well enough to win against Appalachian. They should have probably played better. They might got caught up in a moment once they kind of got in a tight game. But the game against Virginia Tech, who wins this one?
Virginia Tech struggled early. They were trailing Liberty in their opener, and then it seemed like as the game went on, they got more comfortable. New coach there, Frank Beamer was a legend, an institution there. Justin Fuente, who came from Memphis, took over for him. I think as the game went on, they got more comfortable with his offense, which is very different than what Coach Beamer ran. Still a solid defense, still decent good special teams play. I mean, that's something Tech's hung their hat on for years. I give them a slight edge on that. And look for in Saturday's News and Record, we went up and Spencer Turkin and I talked to Mook Reynolds at length up in Blacksburg, did a video with him. Talked to Emmanuel Mosley. We went up to Knoxville and talked to him. We've got videos with both kids. Some really cool stuff to read about those kids. Two great kids and really good football players.
So that'll be online and in the hard copy as well.
You are correct, sir. The videos will only be online.
Yeah, check that at Greensboro.com.
Yes, sir.
High School Extra section. Mook Reynolds out of Northern Guilford and Emmanuel Mosley, the former quarterback, defensive back for Dudley. It's interesting. You got both those guys in a huge game.
160,000 plus people at Bristol Motor Speedway. They had a waiting list with thousands of names.
We got to ask Kendon Hooker later. Do you think he'll be at that game? Be interesting.
I think he would love to be there. The only problem with going to that game is getting out of that game afterward.
Yeah, when it's over.
160,000 people trying to get out of there, and they're not NASCAR fans who are used to getting in and out of there. That's going to be an adventure.
Can anyone touch Clemson this year in the ACC?
Florida State showed a lot to me the other night in their game. They could have rolled over a couple times against Ole Miss in that game, especially early, and fought back. DeAndre Francois got things going as the night went on. That game, Clemson, Florida State, I would pay a lot of money to see that one.
Couple of finals for you. The 4 teams in the NFC West right now will be the LA Rams, the 49ers, the Falcons, and the Saints. Who were the 4 teams in the West back in the day? I was thinking about that last night. I got 3 of the 4. The 4th one eluded me. I had to finally look it up. But back in the day, it was a completely different NFC.
No, it was New Orleans,
there you go.
Atlanta.
There you go.
San Francisco and the Rams.
New Orleans was the tough one. You got that pretty quick.
Yeah.
Give you credit for that.
I remember those days very well.
Yeah, those were good days. That was just a totally different NFC West back in the day. And all at one time they had it down. It was like all those different divisions. It was like the Capital Division, the Coastal Division,
yeah,
the Central Division.
It was kind of like
seas.
what the ACC has done with their divisions, and no one and the NHL for a while we were like, what division is it? Just give me something geographic. But
they had like in the NFC had 2 East Coast teams in the coast and 2 West Coast teams. Crazy stuff back in the day.
Yep.
Hottest game or scrimmage you have been around this year? What's the hottest one so far? We've had, I guess, a couple of regular season games and a lot of scrimmages too. Very warm.
The press box for the Northern Guilford and Page game.
Takes the cake.
You were right there for that one.
That takes the cake and bakes the cake. You can bake the cake in there.
That metal press box at Northern, once they turned the fans off, was like a nice big toaster oven that night until the sun went down. It was warm in there, but I don't want to sound like I'm whining or complaining because it was hot. The kids on the field were working a lot harder than I was, and I'm privileged to be able to sit there and watch these games.
I went down to Ramseur to see the Eastern Randolph Southeast Guilford scrimmage they had on a Saturday afternoon. It was Southeast versus Ashboro. I think it was the game I watched. It was like 1 or 2 in the afternoon. It was 95 degrees, and man, that day was hot. I was wondering, why in the world? Why don't you go about 8:30 in the morning or maybe 6 p.m. at night? Here you're on the afternoon in the heat of the day, 95 degrees, you're scrimmaging, and this is full everything.
Oh yeah,
scrimmage.
yeah.
Man, that baby was warm that day.
I saw Page in Northwest in a 7-on-7. And it was on one of the lower practice fields at Northwest on a very, very warm day during the summer and humid. And it's like a pit. There's just dead air in there, and that was a little toasty. Yeah.
There have been some hot ones. Here's one final question. I thought this afternoon. We're sitting at a ball game. Say, I'll use Dudley since they're doing later tonight. Dudley game, they're up 14-0 at halftime. Hypothetical situation. All of a sudden, halftime, we're at 14-0. The game's in pretty good control. You got things pretty well in check. Coach comes in and says, we're playing soccer in the second half. Switch out to your T-shirts, your shorts. We're playing soccer. Could you make the flip? Go from the football to soccer second half?
I don't know.
That's an interest. I thought about sometimes you just sort of say, just flip the tables. You change sports, and you got to come back and play. Say Dudley versus Page in the second half.
It would certainly change the complexion of things simply because Dudley's soccer is not their strong sport, and Page has a very strong soccer program. Yeah.
Thomas Murray may be busy. I tell you, Thomas Murray, the one game they played against High Point Central this past week, he must have kicked 9 PAT kicks that night. Yeah, that guy's kind of an unsung hero too, kind of an unknown
Well,
guy.
and he's replacing.
Yeah.
He's got a tough act to follow
He does,
in
yeah.
Harrison Kaiser,
He
who's at
does.
Guilford now.
I mean, they've had a great line. Had the Matt Malizer kid, Austin Anthony kid. Then you had after him, you come back with Harrison Kaiser. Then you've got this young kid now, the Murray kid. They've had some very good kickers there, and those guys usually last. They're like 4-year guys.
Yeah,
most of those
there's a
guys.
tradition there, and good coaching and good kids.
And Harrison Kaiser did get in. I think it was 2 punts and maybe 1 kickoff Saturday for Guilford. He's
Yeah.
like the number 2 man, which I can't see he won't be the number 1 man sometime.
He was
soon.
such a weapon as a punter last year. He had a couple of punts, one at East Forsyth that was about a 45-yarder that went out inside the 1 and flipped the field in that game. And a couple of times last year I saw guys fumble his punts just because his ball, when he kicked it, had such a funny spin on it
As it was coming down.
that they had a hard time catching it.
A lot of good information, Joe. Tomorrow you've got the News and Record. You get the hard copy. A lot of the stuff you will have in the March paper will probably be available at the website even later tonight, I'm sure.
Our scouting reports and picks are there right now.
Good stuff as always.
You too, Andy. Thank
See
you, sir.
tomorrow night.
Appreciate
Good
it.
job, Joe.
Thank
Sirera,
you.
News and Record. Go to Greensboro.com, High School Extra section, and